8.1, new business. 8.1 is LGBTQ Pride Month proclamation and flag request. We'll have a brief staff report, and as I always do, items that are brought to us by an individual council member, I give the prerogative to also chime in on the staff report. Anything to add?
Yeah, just to clarify, I did bring this item forward to acknowledge Dublin's LGBTQ community, but also to highlight our storied history. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots in New York City. 50 years ago, it was a criminal act to be or act on homosexual behavior. And on that night in New York City, a movement was born. Fast forward 8 years, Harvey Milk was elected one of the first openly gay candidates in U.S. history as a supervisor in San Francisco. A year later, he was assassinated. And tomorrow, May 22nd, is Harvey Milk Day. As stated by the Harvey Milk Foundation, the day is a celebration not of a people or community or nation being better than any other, but a celebration of the knowledge that we are so much less when we do not embrace, without qualification, all members of our unique and varied humanity. It was barely a decade since marriage equality was banned, and then subsequently, 4 years ago, it was overturned by the Supreme Court. I served for a decade under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Countless service members, my comrades in arms, served and some were discharged under this discriminatory practice that lasted for over 17 years. Today, some transgender youth are 5 times more likely to attempt suicide than their cisgender counterparts. 77% of surveyed LGBTQ youth report that they felt down or depressed in the prior week. So it is a history of challenge and progress, but one that continues to this day. I hope that this action can be the start of an ongoing discussion on how we can support our LGBTQ Dubliners. A proclamation is just a step in, as the Harvey Milk Foundation stated, embracing without qualification all members of our unique and varied humanity.
Very good. Ultimately, the decision on whether any other flags are flown on the city's flagpole is a decision for the city council to make. There's a certain amount of, so if somebody else requested to fly a different flag, that would be a council decision. It's government speech, the council gets to decide. It's not a public forum like a street or a park. The city can choose how it speaks on that flagpole. There is a certain amount of, it would be prudent to adopt a policy that governs how that flagpole, how you deal with requests. That would offer a little bit of additional protection, but it's my opinion that ultimately it is up to the city how and what flags fly on the city's flagpole.
So follow on.
I said the city, but I meant the city council.
City council.
Since moving to Dublin in 1993, I don't recall any other flags flying here at City Hall other than the American, California, and city flags. But tonight the City Council is considering a proclamation to make June Gay Pride Month in Dublin, to fly the rainbow flag all through June. If we are going to recognize and elevate one particular group, then we should be prepared to do the same for all discrete groups who so wish to be recognized.
Most of his comments, I agree that if we allow the LGBTQ flag to be flown in Dublin, then we should allow all groups, including sports and religion and every other flag that someone wants to fly in the city of Dublin. I believe that only the American flag, the state flag, and the Dublin flag should be flown here.
In this city that does a fantastic job of celebrating diversity, is it fair to fly one flag and not the others? If you agree to fly the rainbow flag, can we fly the Confederate flag, the Black Lives Matter flag, a communist flag, a Christian flag? And if we fly the flags, who's paying for them? Based on the First Amendment, no one view should be expressed at the expense of a contrary view. Therefore, no LGBTQ flag should be flown at City Hall unless the city agrees to fly every flag for every organization, some of which I've listed above. Look at the American flag. It is a beacon of hope for all causes. It's a symbol of promise, of freedom, liberty, and justice for all people, including the LGBTQ community. Since we have the most inclusive and the best flag of all, why do we need another one? In other words, isn't less equals more?
May is a very tragic month for the Palestinians. And we suffered 71 years ago the loss of our homes. And I have no ill feel or hate in my heart for anyone. But my concern is that, as the others have said, if we begin to proclaim and to raise flags for different causes and different people, we have to do it for all. So I'll be the first one to put in my request to fly the Palestinian flag in May over the city and to proclaim. So it is endless.
Mr. Kamagawa, thank you for your service, by the way. I've come to ask you to vote tonight no on this matter. I believe that there are inheritive, destructive, and confusing messages that the LGBTQ flag represents. I believe that this is not something that's actually progressive, although it's touted as, because for thousands of years, sexual decadence has been happening. It's destroyed empires, most notably the Roman Empire. It crumbled from within because of immoral destruction. I'm here today to represent children because I believe that at the end of the day that there is another letter that wants to be added to the end is what is being propagated in actually even our state capital right now. And that is the letter P for pedophile. I take one of the subgroups out of this called the transgenders. And I believe that this is mental torture and mental cruelty on children. We have, as parents, have not given our consent to this nonsense. Just Friday, the House of Representatives voted 236 to 173 in favor of the Equality Act, which requires schools to include male athletes who identify as transgender girls on female sports teams. The bill amends the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to make sexual orientation and gender identity protected characteristics under federal anti-discrimination law. Among other things, that would force public schools to expand female athletic teams to include biological males to identify as transgender girls. One representative said that this bill would be totally eliminate women's and girls' sports. Just as a side note, a girls' state wrestling champion, a women's world cycling champion, an international women's weightlifting champion, and a women's state tracking champion are all biological men. If I was a young girl, I would probably say, what's the point now for me to compete in sports? Not to mention killer side effects brought forth by Kaiser Health, who Dr. Darius Guthrie told on NBC News that in a study of 5,000 people who do identify as transgender, men trying to become women were 80 to 90% more likely to have a stroke or heart attack. They also had a higher risk of blood clots due from the estrogen. And what about the children? School districts like Fairfax County, Virginia, have repeatedly voted against telling students about any adverse health effects that these hormone treatments and pro-gender lessons taught in schools. So these things are even taught in nursery school. So in closing here, because of the confusion and the destruction that I believe that is inherent in the community, I would ask you to please vote no and just represent the American flag. Thank you.
Just like the LGBTQ group, I've been discriminated against for 41 years. As a federal firearms dealer, the Democrats have been after me for years. That's 41 years that I've been putting up with the gun haters. So I kind of understand how he feels. But this issue tonight is not about discrimination. It's about pushing a private agenda issue out in the Tri-Valley. 3 years ago, Sean came to this council and tried to push the sanctuary city policy onto the city of Dublin, and it failed. This is where I disagree with Sean in that we don't use public property to push out private agendas. This includes the use of the public flagpole. So this brings the question to all five of you, and John made a comment on it earlier. If you approve this private agenda, how will you as the council say no to other groups or other people without dragging us into a lawsuit, like the NRA, who has lots of money? I also have checked with the city clerk and was told that we don't have the flagpole policy, which I think we should have if we're going to allow private people's flags going up on this pole. So this brings up another thing. We talk about what people have talked about lately here, just here in the last hour. November 17th will be 148 years for another group that's been discriminated against for years, the NRA. So are you willing to hang their flag up? Just happened to bring you one here. I think it would look good. Out in front of City Hall. Anybody else be willing to hang that up out in front of City Hall? Pretty straightforward. And then the next one is, as a business owner in this town, I don't know how many businesses have flags, but are you willing to have this flag hanging up out in front of City Hall? Good picture, isn't it, the guy? Pretty straightforward. Are we willing to do that as a city? So I urge you to vote no on Sean's private agenda, but supporting the LGBTQ group. I support them 100% for what they're trying to do, but not on the flagpole. Thank you.
Thank you, Dublin Mayor and Council, for allowing us to speak. My name is Tamara Bryant. I've lived in this valley for 66 years. And I've taught in the schools from San Francisco to Dublin. My last assignment before retirement was here in Dublin. So I've had an extensive opportunity to see what's going on in the public schools over the last couple of decades. So I want to just stand for the children today, just as my former speaker, Keith, did. I just want to say, first of all, that there's one thing that all of these letters, LGBTQ, all have in common. They're all about sexual practices. And there's a lot of other ways to identify, just as many of the other speakers have said, besides your sexual choice, your sexual practice, your sexual preference. But why are we lifting up before all of our children a series of letters that they're going to ask questions about? That means that every parent, every babysitter, or whoever is going to answer them, and they're going to have a whole education about sex, whether they're 3 years old or 18 years old. Is that really fair to our kids? No, it isn't. I'm going to answer for you. They don't need to be, and they should not be sexualized at the age of 3. Now, recently I saw a little girl, 4 years old, lay down and demonstrate what it looked like to abort a baby, because she said, I have a choice. And whether you're pro-choice or pro-life or whatever your opinion is on this subject, the point I'm making is that was way too young to talk to that little girl about having a baby and what's involved and how it is to kill a baby, how she would kill that baby. So today I just say, I implore you to not put our children in this position. If you want to put up geographics, flags for different areas, fine. If you want to put up different races, fine. If you want to put up different sports preferences, fine. But don't put up a flag that requires 3-year-olds to have a whole explanation of all these different sexual practices. Does anyone here, I noticed that one of their speakers said P is being debated in places around the country right now, whether they should put pedophile on the end of that list. That's how far it's gone. I hope to God that none of you here would vote for that, but that's where it's headed. And if you look at London and you look at Tommy Robinson, a very brave man who stood up for the children that were being abducted into grooming gangs.
That's the 3-minute mark,
Yeah.
Ms. Bryant. Thank you for your
Thank you
comments.
very much.
Okay,
I don't want to end up like London. Thank you.
thank you. Arati de la Rosier, Jing for Mesa, and Mr. Steve Wright.
Good evening. My name is Arati de la Rosier, and I actually live in San Ramon. I have friends who live in Dublin. I have bought cars in Dublin. I can't tell you how painful it's been for me to sit and listen to this. I'm a 69-year-old lesbian. I have a son. The rainbow flag stands for love, quite simply. The freedom to choose who to love. That's all it is. It's to celebrate love. People have died and are dying every day for the right to love each other. The idea of being able to come to Dublin and see the rainbow flag would mean that I am welcome, that I'm safe, and I totally understand. Unfortunately, I do understand. I didn't think it was going to be like this, Sean. I didn't think it was going to be like this. That I would hear this. So in hearing about having all these different flags, yeah, how about all these different flags? Sure. So maybe, Sean, maybe if we could even have one day, one friggin' day, that we could see a rainbow flag over Dublin, and then other people could have their day. Sure, why not? I am a lovable person, and so are you.